Hey, welcome back. It's Michelle.
And Miguel.
And today we're going to be looking at my version of King Solomon, aka Jedediah. And here we go. Boop. Okay, I literally have not much knowledge of the legend of King Solomon, but based off what I learned a little bit from my time with Miguel's version, he is a prophet of the Bible in the Bible, or
there was
fact
like this.
Check me, please.
Yeah, there's this lineage of those important prophets chosen by God, who's pretty much become like a sort of like a vessel of like his wisdom. And so first was King David, then King Solomon, and so on and so on. A long lineage from like the first tribes of Israel. And King Solomon just happens to be the most popular, I guess, and because there's so many legends surrounding him, and in the Temple of Jerusalem, and like his poetry. If you've seen the previous video, I mentioned that he's basically the King Arthur Renaissance man of the Middle East, and he's just that legendary.
So he is like in connection to like the Jewish religion. I guess that's where I was going with this, because I mostly kind of just looked up various designs of King Solomon, and of course he is one of those characters that many artists from the past have wanted to depict him as. I don't know if I was culturally correct with this design of mine, but I just kind of stuck with more of, if he is from the past, he would probably have more loose clothing, more of like robes, gowns, and I may have took a peek at Miguel's design at the time, so I did wanted to kind of make him look a little bit younger. Here, I have him a little bit more of a, I guess that's so he is pretty humble in this. I wanted him to be humble, but
I mean, overall, it's much more culturally respectful than mine. You know, he really drew from like what he would have looked like in that time period in culture. So
there was also this description of him being in association with like riches and gold and having like just abundance of like treasure and stuff. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, I mean, he's pretty much the ideal man for that time period.
And so that's why I used the colors of like yellow and blue, because they tend to represent the idea of like almost royalty. But I did try to make him have some powers going on with his hands. And yeah, I also have like a crown, because he is a king, so gotta have that crown somewhere. What do you think?
I think this is amazing. I mean, what you have always been doing in most of your creations is you really drew from the cultural tradition and at least being sensitive to in respect to that culture. So in this case, a lot of that loose robe is very distinctive from in that, well, I guess apart from like China or Japan, but like in the Middle East, having something loose, you know, that's a luxury, that's a sense of comfort, you know, not much, you know, easy to clean. So that's very like accurate, at least in the representation of King Solomon. Oh yeah, the crown especially. So I think what's interesting here is there's a nice balance between the meek, convenient, loose clothing, you know, like not too much showing off. At the same time, you have the crown that symbolizes his kingship and him being rich, wealthy in terms of the material wealth. But he's also known as, you know, Solomon the Wise, or Solomon the Great, because he's also very thoughtful, very intellectual, magical even. And so, of course, you got the two flamey, magical flames from his hands.
He's overpowered.
Yeah. So overall I like it. It's simple and clean.
And it's a little hard when you're watching time-lapse drawing, especially when the characters are kind of like in a smaller scale from your screen. But I did try to put some lighter details on him.
Oh yes, now I see it.
Yeah, like I wanted to make it like his magic is all over him. I really wanted to play with the idea of magic and wizardry, so I'm glad Miguel like keeps mentioning he's got those magic powers.
Oh, and just a random footnote, this is what I really love about the idea of magic and science back then, and religion, because it was not heretical, this idea of magic. Because now, you know, magic is like, you know, devilry. But back then, science, belief, spirituality, and magic were all one and unified. And all of that is well encompassed in your version of King Solomon, which I truly admire.
I know this seems like a little redundant, especially since we have been just drawing legendary characters or characters from legends, but it seems like there's dispute of whether he was real. But what is your take on that?
I think what's important is really the story and the message in these legends, especially those coming from the major religions. And I think, in my opinion, a way to kind of ease the contention between people and their beliefs is like, let's not focus too much on whether it's like super factual. You know, as historians, they try their best in coming up like what would have existed, who would have existed, and what they were like. And we're not all experts. So we just take this at face value and just respect that this is a magnificent story, a magnificent legacy. And it's something that's uplifting in a way, you know, especially if you were to read King Solomon's poems. It's very beautiful, you know, whether you're religious or not. And that's just the legacy. And in pop culture, I mean, I was just playing a mobile game the other day, and there is King Solomon as a character. You know, it's an anime game, so he's going to look young. And it just reminded me like, wow, you know, his legacy is that widespread.
This is my design, my depiction. Comment down below, what do you think? Do you think he's a little too magical compared to Miguel's version? Do you think he should have a book like Miguel's version? Hopefully you guys are gonna stick around for our next character challenge, so stay tuned and we'll see you guys later. Bye!